Good evening. I'm James Exum, also known as Sakshi, and I'm coming to you from my home in South Austin. Today is the 6th of October. It's approximately 8:10 in the evening, and this will be my next video on the subject of mastery of the soul over the human faculties. I hope you enjoy it. It's the second video on this subject. It's not an A and B or 1 and 2, episode 1 and 2. They stand independent of each other because of the information found within each one of them. And I hope you're doing well this evening. I'm doing okay. So let us begin. The title of this one will be Theorizing the Mastery of the Soul over the Human Faculties. An exploration of the soul's potential dominion over intellect, mind, brain, and body. In other words, the mental complex. And let's start with our introduction. And here we go. We're off and running. The relationship between the soul and the various faculties of a human being, namely the intellect, mind, brain, and body, has been a topic of philosophical, religious, and scientific contemplation for centuries. The theoretical exploration considers whether the soul, often conceived as a seat of consciousness, or essence, which is another word for the soul, can become the master of these faculties, guiding and shaping human existence from within. The soul is typically understood as the material, eternal aspect of a human. It encompasses the consciousness, identity, and the human's higher purpose. Philosophers and theologians often regard it as a source of meaning and moral direction. The intellect, now we're going to go through the various aspects of this mental complex. The intellect refers to the capacity for reasoning, understanding, and abstract thinking. The mind is the sum total of thoughts, emotions, memories, and psychological processes. The brain is the physical organ responsible for processing information, generating thoughts, and regulating bodily functions. The body is the material vessel for housing all these components and serving as the interface with the physical world. I put that word interface into this writing of this discourse because occasionally I like to use the language of the computer world and the internet world. So now we're going to explore the theoretical possibilities of the soul's mastery over the mind, the brain, the body, the brain, the mind, and the intellect. And why would we want to do that? Because if we are able to submit ourselves to the control of the soul making our major decisions and inspiring us and doing away with the aversion we have for doing certain tasks in this life, then we've improved ourselves dramatically. There's nothing in this that is melodious. It's all beneficial. And it's not some sort of AI take over the brain. There's nothing more natural than the soul. The soul is your gift from your creator, which is Brahman. It's unknown to you, as I often say. From the day of your first breath, the moment of your first breath, the second of your first breath, until the exhalation of your last breath. It's outside of space and time, as is Brahman, the creator. So the theoretical possibility of the soul's mastery. So let us theorize that the soul can become a master over the intellect, mind, brain, and body, whose purpose and body is to propose that conscious awareness or essence can exert a guiding, harmonizing, and controlling influence over both mental and physical aspects of the human. Harmonizing is the key word in that sentence. This mastery can be considered across several domains. The first would be mental governance. If the soul is the origin of higher values and intentions, it could potentially guide the intellect, which masters the mind towards constructive, ethical, purposeful thoughts. This might manifest as a strong will with moral clarity or spiritual discipline influencing how one's reason perceives and responds to the world emotionally. Physical influence through practices like meditation, mindfulness, or spiritual discipline. Many traditions assert that the soul's intention can affect the functioning of the brain and subsequently the body. For example, it can help with stress reduction, healing, or psychosomatic effects that may be seen as the soul's mastery over physical faculties. The last video I did, the one that runs rather parallel with this one as far as subject matter, basically was dealing with the physical faculties, which is, again, the body, the brain, the mind, the intellect, and the soul. Integration and harmony. The soul's mastery is not merely control, but the harmonious integration of intellect, mind, brain, and body. In this view, a person whose soul is masterful experiences a unity of purpose and action with thoughts, emotions, and behaviors aligned with the deeper values and meanings of the cosmos. Now we're going to look at it from a philosophical and spiritual perspective. Many spiritual philosophies suggest that the ultimate goal of human development is for the soul to govern the mind and body, transcending base impulses and ego-driven desires. Mystics and sages often describe a process of purification, and inner discipline by which the soul becomes the guiding light, or the entity in charge, leading to enlightenment or self-realization. Conversely, some philosophical traditions argue that the mind or the intellect is primary, and that the soul is a metaphorical construct, not a literal entity capable of mastery. Others propose that the faculties are interdependent and absolute mastery by one over the other, or the others is not attainable, but rather a dynamic balance is sought. Now we're going to go with the scientific considerations, and you have to remember yoga is not a religion, yoga is a science. And myself, being an old yogi, or yogin, sometimes you can be called a yogin, and that's a practitioner of yoga. A yogi is generally one that is highly adept at the philosophical aspects of yoga. I've been doing this for over 50 years as far as the physical and the studies and the comparative data I've collected over these years by comparing different religions, their philosophies, their laws, their gods, and so forth. The mechanism by which this influence occurs remain largely theoretical and are a frontier of interdisciplinary exploration. Yes, it's true. So now we're about to reach our conclusion here. Theorizing that the soul can become master over the intellect, mind, brain, and body involves a synthesis of philosophical, spiritual, and scientific perspectives. While no definite proof exists, many traditions and lines of thought propose that the conscious essence of a human can, through intention, discipline, and awareness, guide and harmonize mental and physical faculties, leading to a greater self-mastery and fulfillment. Now that's basically the discourse that I have written, but I want to back up a little bit and read part of an addendum that I've added to this discourse. I added it either yesterday or the day before. So building upon these foundational definitions, one may theorize a hierarchical model in which the soul exerts influence over the intellect, which in turn governs the mind. In this framework, the soul's guidance shapes the intellect's reasoning and decision-making, allow it to direct the mind's emotional and psychological processes. And that's mentioned also in what I read a few moments ago. As the intellect channels the soul's intent, it can instruct the mind to command the brain, thereby orchestrating the body's actions. Some of the things, say like today, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm going to go off text here for a second and ad lib. This is part of my commentary. I'm an old commentarian. One of the things that happened to me earlier today is I wanted to get certain things done. I wanted to do my weekly laundry, which I did. I wanted to do some cleaning. I wanted to sweep the old bird seeds off my patio. I have about 8 or 9 sparrows that come around every day for 2 or 3 meals a day, and I feed them on a regular basis. But what they don't eat kind of builds up and messes up my patio floor, which is pure concrete, by the way. So I took time and went out there and swept it off today. But I also kind of felt an aversion to doing my laundry. And I said, well, this is interesting. You're averting doing your laundry. It's not that you hate doing it, actually. It's something you've done for years. So there's no hatred there. There was just an aversion. Aversion is a very good term to apply to what I was feeling. Well, in writing this paper, in writing this doctrine, the word aversion came up a couple of times, and I may have left it in here or there, I may have left it out, it doesn't matter. But aversion is a very important thing when it comes to self-mastery. You have to learn to overcome the obstacle of aversion. You have to learn to get past that, because if you want to be productive and in a positive way, and I don't have a lot of time left on this earth. I just turned 75 the other day, so I have maybe 25 years max, and my brain seems to be staying in rather good order. So hopefully, that's a blessing from my Creator, by the way, by His grace. So hopefully, I'll be able to keep going. But back to the point. So I thought to myself, well, you didn't do your laundry this morning. Usually what I do is I put it in the machine and start it up right before I take my morning shower. But this morning I didn't do that. Something was saying, procrastinate a little. Oh, what the hell, And then I discovered something remarkable. And here it is. I said to myself, well, you're writing this paper on allowing the soul to kind of take over and direct the body and the brain and intellect so that it can be more productive in a positive manner. So somewhere during the course of this morning, when I was feeling that aversion, that reluctance is another word for aversion. It's not another word for it, but it's in the same zip code, so to speak. I said to myself, well, why don't I ask my soul, which is called Sakshi, I communicate with it quite often, and it communicates with me. That's why I named it Sakshi, which means the witness. It also means the soul. It also means the Atman. And so I said to myself, well, just mentally communicate with your soul. This is not meditation, this is more conversation. And so I said to my soul, take over for me here and sort of coax my body into doing what I need to do today. Well, I did not get an immediate response. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But then again, I'm an old believer in that old Spanish phrase, Latin, that old Spanish phrase, que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. So I just went on about my daily activities, and lo and behold, a while later, I was already showered, already doing other things, and the thought came to me, now is a good time to start your laundry. And so I did my usual routine, started my laundry, and you're saying, well, you're being long-winded about this. What's the point of it? The point is, to everything there's a season, as Ecclesiastes says, 3rd chapter, and a time and a purpose for everything under the heavens. So I'm mixing philosophy here, Old Testament philosophy with yogic philosophy. But good ideas, no matter the source, are good ideas and should be applied and not averted. A little pun there. And so later on I thought, well, I normally do this during the course of the day, and lo and behold, it happened. Not when I wanted it to happen, but when my soul obviously thought it was the right timing. So everything I set out to do this morning, I was able to accomplish. But it was rather spread out over the course of the day. And it was not done chop chop, 1, 2, 3, 4. It was done in a casual, leisurely manner. So my day was, mixed with pleasure and rest and educating myself and doing my research and doing corrections to my writings, playing with my parrot, resting myself here and there, even taking a couple of naps in there, short naps. Now I understand why old people take naps. It's not because we're lazy or we're running out of energy. It's just refreshing. Young people take naps, especially teenagers. I remember as a teenager, I would sleep in on Saturdays and Sundays like nobody's business. And my poor mother would keep repeating my name over and over to get me to the breakfast table. And then finally she'd just kind of give up. And when I finally woke up, she'd say, I'll warm up your breakfast for you. And there it was. How wonderful that memory is. So back to this foundational definitions. As the intellect channels the soul's intent, it can instruct the mind to command the brain, thereby orchestrating the body's actions. That's what I went through today. It was not a normal routine of doing chores on a Monday, but it was like my soul was orchestrating me and my activities and my aversions. And it was like an orchestra leader, calling upon the drum section, I don't know the terminology for orchestras, or the string section, the violins, or the horns, the trumpets, and whatever. When it was ready, it would give me my cue, and I would do what I needed to do and overcome the aversion that I thought was happening. But it wasn't. Now I understand how this works. Once the soul starts helping you along, it's not dominating, it's just orchestrating. What a wonderful idea that is. But that truly happened to me today. So there's a method to this madness, so to speak. But it's not madness, it's just orchestration. So this layered control suggests that through conscious effort or spiritual discipline, that the soul might ultimately align the entire human system, enabling purposeful action despite internal hesitation. And I will stop there, because that's the most important part of what I had to say. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, that's great. If you didn't, that's okay too. I had a very satisfying day, and I'm glad I was able to share some personal experiences outside of my normal reading and teaching to you. But it also was teaching. is just teaching without reading. It is teaching from personal reflection. So I hope you have a wonderful evening beyond this, a wonderful night, great week, great rest of the year. Be good to each other, be good to yourself, be good to each other, be good to strangers. And who knows? When all is said and done, normalcy will return. The economic, the political, the societal conflicts that are happening now because of the leadership that we're having to endure, this too shall pass. And then we'll be able to look at each other once again and have an amiable meal with each other without retreating at the end of the meal to our corner, so to speak. It's coming. Just be patient, my friends. And remember, que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. And good night to you, and thank you for listening.